I'm sharing my reaction to the article Shakespeare in the Bush by Laura Bohannan and talking about how it connects to worldview and intercultural communication. This article is about an anthropologist who tries to explain the story of Hamlet to the Tiv people in West Africa. She originally believed Shakespeare was universal, like no matter where you live, the meaning would basically be the same, but that definitely did not happen. As she told the story, the Tiv elders kept stopping her and reinterpreting everything based on their own beliefs and cultural systems. They questioned certain actions, disagreed with her explanations, and explained things using concepts from their own worldview. By the time she finished, she realized her version of Hamlet wasn't as universally understood as she had thought. The article is really clear that the people don't just absorb information, they filter it through what they already believe. The Tiv weren't being difficult, they were interpreting the story using their cultural understanding of family roles, marriage, elders, and even witchcraft. What looked unusual or dramatic to Bohannan made perfect sense to them in a totally different way. It's a big reminder that worldview is like a lens we don't even realize that we're wearing. One obvious ethnocentric bias came from Bohannan herself. She started the whole thing assuming there was one correct interpretation of Hamlet, hers. That's a very Western way of thinking, especially academically. She saw herself as the one holding the true meaning, and she expected the Tiv to receive it in the same way she learned it. But her worldview shaped that assumption. When the Tiv challenged her interpretation, she realized her own expectations were based on her cultural background, not on any universal truth. The whole story really proves that what feels normal to us is only normal because we grew up that way. Bohannan thought parts of Hamlet were obviously suspicious or dramatic, but the Tiv saw things completely different. Challenges the idea that our way of understanding the world is the standard. It's not. It's just one way, and so is everyone else's. Something from my own life that ties into this is the way my family communicates. We've got a lot of British influence and Canadian influence, and that definitely shows up in my humor and how I talk. British humor can be really dry, and I have the same style. I'll make a joke, but I won't laugh or say it in an excited way, and people don't always know how to take it. Sometimes they think I'm just being serious, or sometimes even a little rude. On top of that, my family tends to be very direct. We just say what we mean, which feels totally normal to me, but I've had people interpret that directness as being blunt or harsh. So just like Bohannan and the Tiv, we're all looking at things through our own worldview, and misunderstanding happens when we assume everyone communicates or behaves the same way. One really good practice for communicating across cultures is to pause before assuming you understand what someone means. It's okay to ask questions and get clarification, and to not jump straight into your own interpretation. In this article, if Bohannan had asked more about the Tiv beliefs surrounding spirits, elders, kinship, she might have realized why their interpretations made perfect sense within their culture. Instead, she expected them to understand her frame of reference. That's exactly why open-mindedness and curiosity matter so much in intercultural communication. A personal example that connects to this article is actually tied to my humor and communication style. Because of the British and Canadian influence I had mentioned, I use a lot of dry humor. I'll say something that's obviously a joke, at least obvious to me, but it's delivered so straight-faced that people think I'm being serious. I can't tell you how many times I've had someone stare at me because they genuinely had no idea that I was kidding. And the directness, same thing. I'll say something plainly thinking I'm being clear and honest, and someone will take it as rudeness or attitude, blunt harshness. This is just like what happened in the article. The TIV weren't confused, they were interpreting the story through their worldview. And in my case, people aren't confused. And in my case, people aren't confused either. They're interpreting my communication style through their own cultural expectations. The biggest lesson I took from this reading is that worldview has a huge impact on how we interpret everything: stories, behavior, communication, and even what we think is normal. This article reminded me how important it is to stay open, ask questions, and recognize that our cultural background influences how we understand the world. Also shows that intercultural communication isn't about trying to prove your perspective is right, it's about learning how someone else sees things.